People have often described the dolls I make as gothic in style, so you might think they would always be dressed in black. Sometimes they are, but goth is such a broad genre, it covers a wide variety of styles. Around 10 years ago I was introduced to Pastel Goth, an aesthetic that combines darkness with light, creepy with cute, pretty, feminine, irreverent. What's not to love? If Pastel Goth is your thing, then this little button-eyed girl is for you. It's important to me that every doll I make is vegan friendly. Also, a lot of people, myself included, are allergic to wool, so I use a combination of plant-based and synthetic materials. The stuffing I'm using is kapok. It's a silky fine fibre that comes from the fruit of a tropical tree. I pack the stuffing in quite tightly so the doll will be sturdy and keep her shape well. I kind of sculpt and shape the pieces as I stuff them, keeping the surface as smooth as possible. This is the most time-consuming and often the most frustrating part of the making process. I'm using some plain white quilting cotton for a base fabric with 3mm black and white stripes for the arms and legs. The finished doll will be around 22 centimeters tall. I want the bead joints to be a decorative feature rather than something I need to hide, so I'm using some antique silver finish metal beads to joint the arms and legs. The thread I'm using is Gutterman Top Stitch, which is an extra strong polyester thread. With the metal beads, you just need to make sure there are no sharp edges that could cut the thread. These ones are pretty smooth. Sometimes I need to file them a little with a bead reamer before I can use them. I've painted some shoes before attaching the legs. I decided to go for pale pink ballerina slippers. Those are painted in acrylics with a little bit of fabric medium mixed in and a coat of pearlescent glitter varnish over the top. I'm loving the contrast between the pastel pink and the black and white stripes. I stitched the legs in line with the front of the torso, just in front of the seams, so she has a natural shape and can be placed in a sitting position. I make sure the thread isn't pulled too tight so the legs can move freely. If you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to hit like so it gets seen by more people. I want the eyes to be quite dark, so I'm shading around where the buttons will be with Derwent Coloursoft pencils. Most of this is done by eye. I don't really measure or use any templates. I build up layers of black and grey coloured pencil, blending with a blending pencil and adding more shading over the top until I get a dense shadow. Most of this will be hidden, but I want a soft edge that kind of fades out from the edges of the buttons. I also want it to be dark behind the buttonholes, so it's easiest just to shade a solid circle. I'll fix the shading with an artist's fixative spray to protect the finish. While the fixative is drying, I'll work on the dress. I've already made her some underwear from black organza and polka dot satin ribbon. I've chosen a pastel turquoise cotton quilting fabric for the dress, with some contrasting black and white polka dot trim. I'm fitting the bodice directly to the doll by hand. I sew darts in the sides using ladder stitch with some extra strong thread so it fits snugly to the curve of the waist. The buttons are sewn on with the top stitch thread, anchored at the back of the head so they fit tightly to the face. A long doll needle is useful for this. All the stitches and knots at the back will be hidden by the hair. It can be tricky to get the buttons in exactly the right place, so I made 4 little guide holes with the needle first, then hopefully the button will be in the centre of the shading. Some days though I still have to do this 2 or 3 times before I get the buttons symmetrical. If the head has been stuffed evenly, it makes it a lot easier. If the stuffing is firmer at one side than the other, then the buttons just won't sit right. The fine details on the face are drawn with Derwent Linemaker ink pens. It can be quite difficult to show this part close up, but I thought you might like to see how I work. My eyes are not what they used to be, so I use a magnifying lamp to get the tiny curls of eyeliner around the buttons. The ink is permanent and waterproof. so I really don't want to mess this bit up. I've made a knee-length skirt for her from the same turquoise cotton, trimmed with some black and white polka dot grosgrain ribbon and some pleated organza in a sort of purpley pink shade. Most of this is machine sewn. I'm hand stitching it to the doll though, so it will be permanently attached. I tend to wait until I finish the dress before attaching the arms, so they don't get in the way while I work. The arms are bead jointed to the shoulders over the top of the clothing. I stitch through the bead hole and right through the shoulder a couple of times, but not too tight, so the arm is just held securely but still has plenty of movement. I'll fasten it off under the back of the dress so the stitches are all hidden. This is where I can really start to see how she's going to look. After 12 years, I still get excited to see a new doll take shape. I'm using some super chunky weight acrylic boucle yarn for the hair. I've had this yarn in my stash for a long time. I don't think it's available anymore, which is a shame because the colours are gorgeous. It has blues, greens, purples and pinks running through it. It has really long fibres and it's silky soft. The yarn is held together with cotton threads, so I need to pick these out before felting it to the head. I'm needle felting the hair using the Clover pen style tool with 3 38 gauge needles. This little tool makes needle felting so much easier. I'll put a link to the Clover tool and the needles I use in the description. I'm taking extra care around the stitches where I anchored the buttons so I don't break the needles. Felting needles are quite brittle. They're also razor sharp, so I'm keeping my fingers well out of the way. I'll keep adding rows of the yarn until I've covered the full head. I decided to leave the curls in her hair. I've made a little choker for her from some pastel pink ribbon with a bunny and crossbones charm. If you like this doll, here's another one I think you'll love. Hit subscribe if you want to see what I make next, and I'll see you next time. Bye!